One major topic throughout the day has been the NFL protest yesterday, athletes' reactions in general to Donald Trump's comments and his disinvitation to Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors to visit the White House. Gregg Popovich, often an outspoken commenter on social issues, and he is at the podium now in San Antonio.
I'll just tell you what we say to our team. Each one of them has the right and the ability to say what they would like to say and act the way they'd like to act. And they have our full support. And no matter what they might want to do or not do is important to them, respected by us, and there's no recrimination, no matter what might take place, unless it's ridiculously egregious. But there's a line for everything. I think that we do live in a difficult time, and it doesn't do a whole lot of good. We all know the situation, and it gets beaten up every day by talking heads, and it starts to get personal, and I think we all know why. We all know where the source is, where a lot of the division comes from. But to dwell on that sometimes I think is the wrong way to go, because it's so obvious now. It's boring, the childishness and the gratuitous fear-mongering and race-baiting has been so consistent that it's almost expected. The bar has been lowered so far that I think it's more important to be thinking about what to do at a more organic, roots-based, level. Thinking about the efforts to restrict voter registration, comments that demean cultures, ethnic groups, races, women, those sorts of things. What can be done in an organic way to fight that? Because we know how everything happens. We know where the power in the country is. We know the racism that exists, but it's gone beyond that to the point where I'm more worried about and more confused by the people around our president. These are intelligent people who know exactly what's going on, who were basically very negative about his actions, but now it seems that it's condoned. And we saw it this weekend with his comments about people that should be fired or people that shouldn't be allowed to do this sort of thing. I wonder what the people think about who voted for him, where their line is, how much they can take, where does the morality and the decency kick in. And I understand very well, they didn't like their choice. Economically, a lot of people had a problem. And he was the right guy at the right time to tap into that mood. And people overlooked one hell of a lot to be able to pull that trigger and vote in that direction. But it was because they wanted change. They felt ignored. They actually thought something would happen that would aid them. But at what price is the question. And as we see the actions over and over and over again, one wonders what is in their heads, and have they come to the conclusion that they had the wrong vehicle. They might have had good ideas and good reasons why they wanted to go the way they went, but someone else that had a little bit more decency about how they approach other people and other groups might have served better. And that's what I worry about in the country. You wonder about if you live where you thought you lived. I just heard a comment this morning from a NASCAR owner and from Mr. Petty that just blew me away. Just blew me away. Where the owner described the fact that he would get the Greyhound bus tickets for anybody to leave and they'd be fired. And Mr. Petty, who said people who act the way we saw on Sunday, they should leave the country. That's where I live. I had no idea that I lived in a country where people would actually say that sort of thing. I'm not totally naive, but I think these people have been enabled by an example that we've all been given. And you've seen it in Charlottesville and on and on and on. That's not a surprise. Get over it. You know, what do we do to get it done? To go to the grassroots and not allow this to happen again. You know, our country's an embarrassment in the world. This is an individual who actually thought that when people held arms during the games that they were doing it to honor the flag. That's delusional. Absolutely delusional, but it's what we have to live with. So you got a choice. We can continue to bounce our heads off the wall with his conduct, or we can decide that the institutions of our country are more important, that people are more important, that the decent America that we all thought we had and want is more important, and get down to business at the grassroots level and do what we have to do. I guess that's enough for now.
I don't know how long that answer was, but, you know, Gregg Popovich, you see both sides of him during the course of the season. There are times when he doesn't want to speak to the media at all, and there are times when he has something to say about a topic on which he is engaged and is as well-spoken and thoughtful as anybody in pro sports.
Again, Matt, you know, this is a racial issue, and this is a time in our country where we need people to stand up. And we are fortunate enough in the NBA right now that we have white coaches, white leaders, and a commissioner who is speaking up for racial injustice and equality in this country. That, you know, when you have a Gregg Popovich and a Steve Kerr,
Stan Van Gundy.
And a Stan Van Gundy
issued a statement today.
Yeah, I mean, to have, and this is what sport is all about, right? We unify, we bring people together. This is where the country has always come to have these hard, difficult racial discussions about equality. And this isn't a political discussion. This is strictly right now a race discussion about African Americans and minorities and how we participate and live in this country on a level playing field.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think the big thing is how can everybody get a chance to be part of the American dream? How can everybody get a piece of the American pie? And you know, we've talked about it, Isaiah. Education is a lot of things I think that we got to go down to the grassroots of to find reasons for that. And I think it's very simplistic to say, oh, this will help, or this is going to solve it, or, taking a knee is going to solve the problem. That's going to bring an opportunity for people to talk, but there has to be solutions. There has to be going back to the beginning and saying, how can everybody prosper in America? Because I do agree with, Popovich said something. There was a lot of people who economically the last 15 years have just passed them by. They've just been forgotten, whether they're manufacturing, where there's a lot of people that were just frustrated that they couldn't get ahead, and they were looking for anything as a change agent. But I think as a country, we got to look at it and say, how can we change? How can we get better in these areas?
Popovich said, at what price?
Yeah.
And is the price that we have, that we oppress a certain group of people and go back to, the 20s and the 30s, or back to the 1800s, that's the discussion. That's what's on the table today when we're talking, about race relations in this country. The fact that I can sit here on the desk and have a conversation with you two as an African American, hey, that's what's at stake today. These are the stakes, and the stakes are very high. And we're fortunate, again, to have someone like a Popovich who's white, someone like a Steve Kerr, and they have two prominent teams in the NBA. And then you got a LeBron James as a player, then you got a Steve Kerr. We're fortunate in this time that we got players and coaches who are willing to voice for the voiceless. Because I tell you what, I shudder to think if a Popovich wasn't here, or Kerr wasn't here, or Curry or LeBron James wasn't speaking out on these issues as they are in the NBA right now, I shudder to think what would be taking place and what would be happening.
Well, if it's anything like what's happened in the NFL, I think you're going to see players coalesce around this issue even more. I don't know what that's going to mean in terms of any sort of gestures on the floor, but clearly we're not done with this issue.
Equality
is going to be around. That question is going to be around for a long time.
Why is that so fearful for America? I mean, to have equality. And in sport, that's what we thrive on, is equality.
Right.
But when you talk about equality in society for men, women, equal pay, race, so forth and so on, why is that such a difficult discussion for America to have? That's what we don't understand as the minorities in this country.
I don't have an answer for you there either. We're going to get to L.A. when we come back. The L.A. Lakers. Some buzz around that team thanks to Lonzo Ball. Magic Johnson running the show there as well. We'll hear from the Lakers when